5. Like, we want to do that. All right. You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name. Politics is our game, and we will be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening because we have as our guest Joe Walsh. He is running for Congress. I should say running for re-election. He is the congressman in the 8th Congressional District. He is a Republican. He lives now in McHenry. Way back when, before redistricting, we had the 8th Congressional District was in it was 3 parts. Cook County, northwest Cook County, and so it's Schaumburg and places like that, and then West Lake County, and then McHenry. McHenry is now at 15%, I think. What was it? Cook County was about 35. Lake was 50.
Lake was about 50.
So what do we do now? Because Joe, they did come to get you. Folks, you're looking at Joe Walsh, who, when you want to think of somebody who they came to get. Because, he won. For you folks who don't know the story, we're taping this in 2012, January 3rd, 2012. Yep. And by the way, folks, a Happy New Year, a belated Happy New Year, a Merry Christmas, belated Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and Joe Walsh. What have I left out?
Don't ever say Happy Holidays. You got it all.
I got it all, but not. I got everything. Okay. Say Merry Christmas. You want that. And Happy Hanukkah.
Yes.
Happy holidays. Because there's somebody who's doing a war on Christmas, right?
Absolutely.
They're still doing it. The liberals don't like Christmas, right?
They don't. They're afraid of it. Recognize the days they are, not this general blasé happy holiday crud.
History is important. Culture is important. So see, folks, we get right into the show. I was blabbing on about something. Forget all of that stuff. I mean, here's the thing, Joe. I mean, we'll get to substance, but you know what they're saying, Joe. You were going to run in the 14th Congressional District, and the incumbent is Randy Holcomb.
Back up. There's no incumbent. Understand, Jeff, what happened. The Democrats did a number in Illinois. Republicans have done it in other states. The court should have overturned it. They didn't. So now we have to live.
You mean by the Constitution of the United States?
The federal court, the 3-person federal court that heard our claim that this redistricting was a big gobbledygook that was an outrage to attempt to overturn an election. It didn't work. The court ruled against us. So we live with these districts that we have to live with. I live in what would be this new 14th district.
You do, and you live, what's the area, what's the name of the area you live in, Barrington?
McHenry, Illinois.
No, now you live in McHenry. And McHenry, where you live now, is actually in the new 14th
The new 14th district,
It was
exactly.
the 8th Congressional District.
It was.
So they basically moved you out of the 8th because they wanted to run somebody, and they hoped you would have to run in the 14th, or choose to, because then you'd have essentially two Republican incumbents.
Oh, that's the
running
plan.
So you would be running against Randy Holcomb, who won the 14th.
Republican freshman.
You had won the 8th 2 years ago.
Yes.
And that way you sort of eliminate and kind of nullify. We've heard of jury nullification, where the jury decides that O.J. Simpson, who's probably guilty, is innocent. So this is nullification of the 2010 election, where Mike Madigan, and who else helps him on the redistricting? Would Cullerton be in on that?
Well, or look to Washington. Look to some of the
guys in
Washington Democrats.
So in the House? That would be like Nancy Pelosi. Does she have anything to do with that?
No,
Steny Hoyer?
I don't know
Harry
exactly
Reid?
who. All I know, Jeff, is that these districts are a mess.
Okay.
And what they did to each and every one of us is they either paired us up with another Republican or they made our district much more Democratic.
But the short question, people are saying, okay, you were going to run in the 14th. You were going to run against Randy. It would have been kind of a mess, but you felt that was best for you and for your district, right? And then something happened, and what people are saying is they made you an offer you couldn't refuse.
God,
that they
no.
came up, you read these on the blogs, I don't know, even in Politico, what did they say? So they offered you, the party said, here's $3.5 million. That was an offer you can't refuse. What they mean is they'll raise that much money for you, so when you run in the general election, and they'll clear the field. You got a few people running, but nobody's serious, so they clear the field for you in the Republican primary in the 8th.
Jeff,
that's the word that's out there. Yeah, I'm not saying it happened, but am I right? Isn't that the word? So if you go on
Chris,
if you go on hardball, if you ever get to go on hardball again with Chris Matthews, isn't that what Chris would say? He would say, look, Joe, you know the truth. You couldn't run in the 14th because the party said get out of there, run in the 8th. The party gave you $3.5 million, and that's the way it goes, right?
Wrong.
Is that what Chris Matthews would say?
That may be what Chris says, Jeff. Okay. But the bottom line is, look, I wrestled with this. This was my decision. When I came out at the end of September and said, by golly, if we have to live with this map, I'm going to run on the 14th, that was a tough call. And for 2 months, I wrestled with it because I believe, getting back to where this show started, this next election, Jeff, is the most important election in your life.
Now it'll be 2012, the fall.
In 2012.
November, what's the election date in November?
November, I don't even know what the
We don't
date
even
is.
know. Okay.
No, in November 2012, the most important election in our lifetime. There is a clear divide between Barack Obama's America and my America. And my fight, even though Randy Hultgren and I are very different Republicans, my fight is not with another Republican. Our fight is not between Republicans.
Your fight is with the Democrats.
Oh my God, yes.
So
Our
most
fight,
likely in the 8th Congressional District, the Democratic primary seems to be primarily, if we can double up on that word, primarily between Tammy Duckworth, who's been here, and Raja Krishnamurthy, right? They'll run against each other. They both have a lot of money. They both have a lot of some name appeal. And whoever wins that, that's going to be your opponent, your Democratic opponent, assuming you win the Republican primary. Okay? So it's Walsh against either Krishnamurthy or Walsh against Tammy Duckworth. And what you're saying is the differences between you, Joe Walsh, and Tammy or Raja, they're not small.
what I'm saying is the country's going through a revolution.
It's a big choice now.
It is a huge choice.
With
Jeff,
435 House seats up and about 34 Senate seats, and the presidency, which will likely be between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama.
Oh, we
right?
don't know. It'll be
No,
between
like-
Barack Obama and
We're taping
and
this as
a
they
Republican.
have the caucus in Iowa. We're taping it on January 3rd. But you're pretty sure that Mitt Romney wins that, Ron Paul wins that, or what's his name? Rick.
Rick Santorum,
See?
Rick Perry,
I can't
Newt
remember.
Gingrich.
No, but Rick, what's that guy's name? I have trouble with it. Rick
Santorum.
Santorum, okay. Sando Momentum or something like okay, Rick Santorum. But no, Gingrich is not going to win that. You know that. He was ahead a few weeks ago. He's not going to win that.
Jeff, you and I don't know who's going to win it. Here's what I know.
Bachman's not going to win that, is she?
Well, here's what. Oh,
Perry's not going to win that.
All I
so it
know,
is either
Jeff-
Paul or Mitt Romney or Rick Santorum, right?
what I do know is that any of those six would be a better president than President Obama, and any of
Really?
those six.
Do you really think that Michelle Bachmann is qualified to be
Oh God, yeah.
president
Was
of the United
Barack Obama qualified?
States? Yeah.
Why?
Well, for one
Well, how
thing,
was he more qualified?
He was a U.S. senator.
He was a state senator.
But he was a U.S. senator.
Jeff, that's
for
not
how many
true.
years? For 4
Jeff-
years before he was elected.
Jeff,
he was elected to the U.S. Senate
Jeff, he was a state legislator.
until 2004,
and then he
became
got
a US
elected,
senator
and
in
probably
2004.
that next week he started to run for
Oh, that's
president.
unfair.
He was the cut it out. He
Come
was
on.
the least vetted candidate for president in our country's history.
That's not true.
How do
because
you know he was qualified? How do
Because
you know he was?
he sat in your chair, the very
Michelle,
chair you're sitting
Michelle
in.
Bachmann's a congresswoman.
No, but he sat in the chair that you're sitting
That
in.
makes him qualified. I'm
Excuse me, but
qualified
let me
then.
finish.
I'm qualified then.
Sure, come on, this isn't the Chris Matthews show, so let me
Well,
finish.
do not tell me.
Well,
Because again,
you
this
asked me.
is
You asked
no,
me.
no,
Do you
no,
want
no,
me to
no.
answer?
No, I'm
this,
gonna,
folks, this is becoming a phenomenon.
Do
A
not-
week ago, we had was it Tom McNamee from the Sun Times, and he cut me off.
Well, I'm going
Now
to cut you
me
off again, and only because
I can't get any respect around
Chris
here.
Matthews
I can't
2
get
days
respect.
ago, Jeff,
I
think
keep
about
getting
this.
caught by my guests.
Chris Matthews 2 days ago said Rick Perry doesn't have the brains to be president. How
Who said that?
outlandish
Who
is
said
that?
that?
Chris Matthews said that on his show.
Well, do you
how
think he
do
does?
How do we know?
Joe, if you said there are 3 agencies that need to be abolished, do you think you would be stumped by the time you came to name the 3rd?
Barack Obama said there were 57 states
Slip
in
of the
this
tongue,
country.
but seriously,
no,
3.
cut it. Why
Couldn't
do you?
you- couldn't
How do you
couldn't
know?
couldn't you
Jeff
come up with a 3rd?
Berkowitz, you're
Okay,
not being honest.
energy. Say I did this. So this reenactment. This is sort of a reenactment. Okay, so I'm Rick Perry. I'm in debate, and I say there are 3 agencies that should be abolished: education, okay, commerce, Department of Commerce, isn't that right? And then the 3rd is, he says, and he looks around it. I can't think of it.
Jeff,
Now, Joe,
you
even
know
if, even
better.
if he couldn't remember energy, why not just say interior?
Jeff, you know
You
better
just say
than this.
anything, you know?
You know better. You're better than this. You're not Chris Matthews.
No, I'm just saying when you do that, it
If you
troubles
listen-
people.
No,
See,
stop from
Obama would at least come up with something.
Jeff?
Like, I know Barack, you know.
So you know him. So you know he's
I'm not
smart.
saying he's better.
No, stop
I'm not
for a
saying
moment.
I agree with him.
Stop for
I
a
just
moment.
think he's
You
smarter.
don't know Rick Perry, so you don't know how intelligent
seen him.
Rick
I've
Perry.
seen him for
You've
over a
seen
year
him.
now.
You've never met him.
Yeah, I know, but I've
Okay.
seen him for a year. You don't think if you watch 10 debates, you can get an idea how smart somebody is?
Mayor Daley, was he a smart guy? He couldn't string together a sentence.
No,
Smart man or not?
I would say not shrewd, but not smart. Shrewd, but not scary in some ways.
How do
lacking
we
he was in
assume?
intelligence.
They said the same thing about Ronald Reagan. They said
No,
the same thing about
was
Dwight
wrong.
Eisenhower.
I never said that about
No,
Ronald
but
Reagan.
you're falling into the same
No, I'm
trap.
not. There's a difference
Yes, you
between
are. The
Ronald
liberal
Reagan.
media
We happen to
does.
have a pin here that says, "Remember when America had a real president?" I don't know if we can get a close-up of that. Probably not. But that's Ronald Reagan. That was a pin for Ronald Reagan. So we're balanced because here's a John F. Kennedy pin. I don't know. Can we get these folks? Can you do that, Steph? Can you get a close-up for me? Okay, so on my right, let's do that right. On my right, I got Ronald Reagan. There we go. See, I'm not lying, folks. We keep these things around. That's Ronald Reagan, and it says, "Remember when America had a real president?" Okay, Ronald Reagan. And on the left, appropriately enough, the man for the '60s. You know who? This is one of these flicking pins. You don't have one of these, okay? It's JFK.
That's pretty nice.
That's cool. Okay, can we get that? Can you get that? The man for the '60s, JFK. Well, I've turned around. Here we go. Okay, cool. We haven't done this before, folks, but we take risks on this. It's like they do at Greeley School. They tell the kids, and if people are watching on the North Shore, they know that Greeley, one thing they say is be a risk taker. So we took some risks, and it worked. I mean, Steph, my floor director here, Stephanie Stone, she like works miracles. She handles that camera like it's, I don't know, it's like the palm of her hand.
Jeff.
So, and you know, Nakia Ford over there directing, you met Nakia probably just before, if not just here at the show. She is just fantastic. She does the directing here. And then I've got Joanne Hubler, who's on CGs. Three people handle CGs, audio, and this, because the station says, here's the Comcast policy, we don't have time to have our staff who are here assisting you. We might start a little bit of help. So my fault, folks, I should have, but I can get by with three. But my point is, seriously, Joe, my point is, you know in your heart, Rick Perry's not a very bright guy.
No, Jeff, I'm not going to sit here and let you say that.
You know Michelle Bachmann's not a very bright young lady.
Jeff, you're being silly. I expect this out of Lawrence O'Donnell and Chris Matthews. Listen to me.
And you know that
How
Mitt Romney.
do you know that?
Mitt Romney.
How do you know?
You know Mitt Romney is very smart.
How do you
also
know?
You also know that Newt Gingrich is very smart, and you know that Ron Paul is sort of smart, but a guy who has these flirtations as he's had with anti-Semitism, I don't think we can call him that smart, right?
Hey, Jeff.
What do you say about those flirtations of Ron Paul with anti-Semitism?
We don't, listen to me for a moment.
Okay.
We don't know. You have no clue as to how smart Barack Obama is. Here's
I do.
what I do know.
Spent 20 hours with the guy. You have not spent 20 hours talking to him.
So he's a smart man.
Smart. He doesn't know economics very well, but neither did John McCain. I didn't say John McCain was stupid.
Here's what I know.
Joe, you know economics and you're
know.
a smart guy, but you're never going to be president of the United States, Joe. But you know economics
How do
very
you know
well.
that, Jeff?
I know that.
How do you know that, Jeff?
Joe, because look at your career. You're out here and you're 50 years old, right? All right. Are you about 50 years old?
Yes.
Am I guessing? Okay. You're 50 years old and you're now in your first year as a congressman. And Joe, I would trade places with you in a heartbeat. Don't take this as denigrating, because you had a remarkable win in 2020. I'm not just sucking up. It was remarkable. Nobody thought you could win, including you.
Oh, I knew
But you stuck to it. You stuck to your principles. You rallied the Tea Party, who was looking for somebody with principles, and you won. So don't take for a minute what I'm saying as something knocking you. Now, folks, I'm fair and balanced. We can find Democrats who I would say nice things about. We can cite Republicans. Walsh deserves a lot of credit for what he did to put together a victory. But, Joe, you're never going to be president of the United States.
Well,
you're not on track. Mitt Romney is on track. He may be president. Barack may get reelected. I could call that. When Barack ran in 2008, he was running against 7 other people. But, Joe, I could say then, there were only 3 who could be president out of that race: Hillary Clinton, John Edwards, and Barack Obama. Biden wasn't going to be, Richardson wasn't going to be, that other crazy guy, former senator from Alaska, Mike Gravel.
I agree.
You see my point?
But Jeff, that's not what you...
This is a truism. In
that's
this country,
not what you asked
in this
me.
country, every 4 years, we only have, out of 300 million people, 2 or 3 who can be president.
Right, Jeff, but that's not what you asked me.
We're digressing. We want to talk about Joe Walsh.
But this is an important...
We only have about 15 minutes left.
But this is an important point.
Do you want to use it on this?
Yes, I want to make this point.
Okay.
Nobody voted for Barack Obama based on anything he'd done. He did not have a resume. I believe very few people...
Something he said, he got him that...
I believe very few people... Let me finish my point, Jeff. Very few people voted for him based on anything he said.
Would you like some snack rolls?
Jeff, no.
Okay.
The reason people voted for
Sean.
him is because of who he was. He was a historic figure, our first African-American president.
That helped.
It helped a lot. It made this country
Don't you think
feel
a lot of
good
people
about
felt
itself.
good because they were voting for somebody not just who was African American, but who spoke exceedingly well, who in Barack's terms, and he told me this in 2003 when I said to Barack, how do you differentiate yourself from the 6 other Democratic competitors for the U.S. Senate? You know the 3 things he mentioned? Do you want to take a guess?
Go ahead, Jeff.
He
Go
said,
ahead.
1, he knows the issues, he has a vision, and he speaks out. Joe, it turns out for Republicans and Democrats, those 3 things are unusual. Now, I think, Joe, you know the issues, you have a vision, and you speak out. But you share that with Barack Obama. You are unusual. Obama was unusual in doing that. You're unusual.
Jeff,
admit it, Joe. Admit
would
it.
you
There aren't
agree-
a lot of people who do those 3 things. You do it, and so does Obama.
I agree, but would you agree
You
with
were
me?
an Obama. In a sense, you're like, you could be twins.
Do you agree with
other
me?
than your views and your philosophy
Do you agree with
and your
me?
views on the issues?
Jeffrey, do you agree with me that nobody voted for him based on anything he'd done? Correct?
No, they voted, the Democrats.
Based on anything he had
Excuse
done.
me, because, yeah, in a sense they had. The Democrats voted for him in large part, at least many, not all, and voted for him instead of Edwards and instead of Hillary Clinton because
Based
of
on
2
his-
things.
based
2
on
things he
his
did.
resume?
2 things he did in October and November of 2002. You know what they were?
What?
In October of 2002, he gave the speech. You know what that speech said?
But Jeff, you're
What was that
talking
speech
about
about?
his
Excuse me.
speech.
Yeah, but it's an important speech. Because what did that speech say in 2002?
Tell me.
It said that he was not a peacenik in the sense that he was against all wars. But before we invaded Iraq, this was in October of 2002, he saw that was a mistake, and he said he's not against all wars, which upset a lot of the liberals who were in that crowd. But Obama said, I'm not against all wars, but I'm against this war, because he said the Iraq war is a dumb war. And so when Hillary Clinton and John Edwards were voting to authorize the president to take military action in Iraq, which they later said they regretted, okay? Obama was, in the Democrats' mind, making the right decision. And then in November of 2002, he came on this show, Joe. In November of 2002, November 25 to be exact, when many people, like Brad Schneider, a slight digression, we've asked Brad to be on the show for the last 6 months. He said he would do it, and then he doesn't have time, he's got to meet. Okay, he's not going to be here. At least, Brad, maybe you changed your mind and you'll be here, but when we last spoke, you sort of jerking me around. And John Tree, though, one of his competitors, he's going to be here, he said, in 5 days. And Ilya Shayman already here. So there's a difference between people in the same party in terms of whether they're willing to go out, face this questioning from Berkowitz. And Obama came on here in November of 2002, and I asked him the same question. If you'd been in Congress, how would you have voted? Would you have voted to authorize the president to take military action? The war was very popular, even though it was an impending war at that time. Hillary was for it. Edwards was for it. What has Obama said? He said, if that came up for a vote, he said, I think I would have had a vote the same way as the senior senator from Illinois, Dick Durbin. Nay, no. And that vote, that statement of how he would have voted, that's the main reason why they preferred him to, the Democrats preferred
Jeff,
him to Hillary.
You did not answer my question. When I asked
He
you
passed
about
25 pieces of legislation in 2002. How many pieces of legislation has Mitt Romney passed? Okay.
Come on, Jeff.
He was governor, but seriously, what was the major legislation? It was Obamacare.
You referred to a speech.
Mitt Romney's now in trouble for he passed health care
When
legislation.
I asked you how
that
qualified Barack Obama was,
We got
you
to make
referred to
the
a
show
speech
about.
and an
Can we make this
appearance on
about
your
Joe
show.
Walsh? You're running for Congress in the 8th Congressional District, right?
I am a congressman.
And on
I'm running for re-election.
education, you are a big supporter of school choice, school vouchers,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
You would like to see voucherize the whole 8th Congressional District. Everybody in that district take the money we're currently spending. If they want, stay in the public school. If not, take that same pro rata share, federal, state, and local money, and spend it at the school of their choice. You would sign that, agree to that in a heartbeat, right?
In a heartbeat. I'd like every parent in this country to choose where their kids go to school, and I want the money to follow that decision.
Okay.
Absolutely. Again, that is the closest thing we've got to a silver bullet to force public schools to improve.
We could radically improve the quality of education by doing that. Many people say that's difficult. Even Rahm Emanuel was adamantly against school vouchers, but he is apparently for charter schools. John Tillman over at the Illinois Policy Institute. Do we have something? Folks, you'll see that come up on the screen. You should have seen that before. Go to that website. It was illinoispolicy.org for the Illinois Policy Institute. Go to heartland.org. You can read about school vouchers. But Rahm Emanuel, he'll do charter schools but not vouchers.
Of course he
What do you say?
Because
are you okay with charter schools?
Not at all.
Not at all. That's not even halfway there.
No, it's
because
it's
you
not
know the
even,
only policy institute says it's halfway. Joe Bass says halfway. I hope I'm not misquoting Joe.
I don't know that Joe Bass will say it's halfway.
But he likes
It's
charter
not
schools. He
halfway.
prefers charter schools to traditional public schools.
It's not. It's not choice. It's not
No, but
true.
Joe Bass.
Well,
Does he right here? Here he is.
It's certainly.
His books. Here's
it's
Education
certainly-
Capitalism by Herb Wahlberg and Joe Bass. I haven't read it all, but I think Joe would say it's better than the traditional
I don't
public
know
schools.
where Joe is right now. Rahm Emanuel,
See that book?
like most
Can we get the-
Democratic,
get
the book.
Get that book.
Rahm Emanuel, Jeff, like most Democratic
Get that
politicians.
from the Heartland Institute. Take a read. You know, Tom McEnany, he was here from the Chicago Sun-Times. He says the evidence is, he doesn't know that there's evidence. He says some evidence says charter schools are good, some not, even though they support them. Tom, give this a read. Thank you so much for coming, Tom, by the way.
Jeff, the unions, the teachers' unions, are afraid of one thing: vouchers. Plain and simple. Because that's the one thing.
It empowers parents.
Absolutely. And so
But
Democratic
extending
politicians.
it. So extending that, Joe, you want to empower individuals in general, not just over education, healthcare decisions. You think they can make the decisions best. That's why you're adamantly opposed to Obamacare, right?
Absolutely. And that's why, Jeff, this election
And
so
What
important.
do your opponents think? Because we've had Raja Krishnamurthy over here. We've had Tammy Duckworth. What do you think they think? Democrats?
Raja and Tammy support Obamacare. Raja and Tammy. That's why this election.
So this is going to be the
Jeff, let
debate.
me
This is going to
finish
be the
a
debate.
point.
Yes, sir.
This election, the most important election in your life, is also the easiest election, because the difference between what President Obama thinks and whoever the Republican nominee thinks is vast. All right? President Obama and Raja Tammy, doesn't matter who it is, they want government to control more of these things.
So even the difference between Mitt Romney, who had his own Romney Care in Massachusetts,
Absolutely problematic.
even you'd say Romney is better on health care than, say, Obama would be. You see
Yes,
a difference.
and
you see a difference between those two.
Yes, because
Even notwithstanding what he did in Massachusetts.
again, a mistake what he did in Massachusetts. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but understand.
Well, so where's the difference? Where's the difference then?
Because Mitt Romney in the White House will have a conservative Republican House and Senate to work with.
No, but why isn't he going to go back to do what he did in Massachusetts, only do it for the whole country?
Because I'm taking him at his word that he understands that he. Well,
He didn't say it was a mistake.
Jeff,
he
no,
says federalism is different.
He
was
said, yeah, he
experimenting.
said
He never
states
said he
should-
made a mistake.
No, substantively he didn't, but he said that decision should be left to the states.
Taxes. So that big thing about the payroll tax, it was a 1-year reduction by 2% of the payroll tax.
Which we voted for,
You
which the
supported
House
that.
voted
You
for.
supported for that.
Absolutely.
From the get-go, because, you know, people said it should expire. Initially, the Republican Party said it should expire, and then they relented and said they wanted.
I didn't.
You always wanted that.
Anytime-
Never, anytime you cut taxes, you're for it.
It's a good thing, period.
Except you should have made it longer term initially. 1-year tax cuts are not so good, right?
Absolutely.
5
Temporary-
years, 10 years, that would be better, right?
Permanent.
Permanent.
Cut marginal rates.
So why didn't the
permanently.
Republicans make this point? They never miss an opportunity, They should have said, we'll support your tax cut if you make it 5 years. Why didn't they say that? Is that so tough? I mean, you get all these guys paid a lot of money, and then you get this kind of schmo Jeff Berkowitz here, not paid anything, and I come up with this idea?
Well,
I mean, serious. You agree with me?
Absolutely.
So
Jeff.
why couldn't your guy, Boehner, who's your boss, you know, he's speaker, he's your boss.
Yeah, he's doing. Well,
Why didn't Boehner say what I said?
my boss is the people who sent me to Washington.
Really? Okay.
Boehner does a pretty decent job.
Let's
Jeff.
talk about the eighth a little bit. Now, the new eighth, Schomburg is in there, right?
Yep.
That's a big part of it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's about 270,000 registered voters, about 30,000 from Schomburg.
No, it's got about 185,000 of my current constituents are in
No,
the
but
new
the
eighth.
the new eighth has a total of about 270,000 registered
I
voters.
think 300,000 to 400,000 registered
Think?
voters.
I was counting this afternoon with one of your aides from the campaign.
So-
And by the way, where to find what's the website that people go to
For the campaign?
for the campaign?
WalshForCongress.com.
Easy to remember. Walsh, some people would spell it W-E-L. No, it's W-A-L-S-H, right? Did I get that right?
A-L-S-H.
It's W-A-L-S-H, okay.
And Jeff, again, it
Walsh for
doesn't matter.
Congress, and if they want to see your official website, where do they go then?
Walsh.house.gov.
Okay. And basically, when they go to your website, they see you going back to the Founding Fathers.
Yes.
There are these, 28 founding principles?
We're going back to the original American dream.
Because you believe in the Constitution.
Yes.
Okay, you're a strict constructionist.
Absolutely, which we have gotten miles and miles from. It's not just Barack Obama, Jeff, that got us here. Republicans helped
So
get
you're
us
telling
here.
people, what would you do to jobs, jobs, jobs? Is that what this is about? And the Democrats would say we need to have big spending, we need to have infrastructure spending, they need to follow the stimulus program that Obama came up with. I think Tammy Duckworth would support it. I think Raja Krishnamurthy would support it.
Sure
Joe
they would.
Walsh, would you sign on to that $450 billion stimulus program of
God,
Barack
no.
Obama?
My job's plan
Well,
is
what would you do to get, what would you do if you were king and you could institute a program, you were the speaker, you were the president, you could come up with a program, would you do anything or just say, let the free market work and all will work out? Or would you do anything in Congress, okay, that would, in your sense, improve the economic outlook and the job opportunities for the American people and specifically the people in the 8th?
we create jobs out here, so I get government out of the way. Freedom and states' rights.
What do you do
If
to
I
get
could
them out of the way?
You know what? I simplify the tax code immediately. I flatten and simplify the code. I get rid of all these government regulations right now, which are not allowing us to drill for oil, natural gas,
Would
and
you
clean
get
coal.
rid of clean air regulations?
No, there'd always be some
Some.
regulation,
Okay,
but I'd
you're
scale
not, You're
back.
not a complete anarchist.
No, gosh, no.
You're
There's
not a Ron Paul guy who would say basically nothing, okay?
There's a role for government to help regulate, but I'd simplify the code. I'd get rid of regulations, and
Would you cut marginal rates of taxation?
Absolutely,
Would you
I
cut
would.
capital gains to zero?
I'd eliminate capital gains tax. I'd eliminate the estate tax.
And you think more people would be working in 12 months if you did that than if you either did nothing or you followed the Obama
More
proposal?
people will be working within a month or two. Once you let
When you
more,
do that, when you do
yes,
that.
once you let more Americans keep
And what about
more
the
of
Iran
their
situation?
money.
Because, you know, people like to say, well, we always have the option, we'll keep it on the table, whether you're Bush, whether you're Obama, the military option is to remove the nuclear capability of Iran. Would you agree with that?
It has to be on the table.
And, does
And
would
it has
there
to-
come a point if you were president, we just said we didn't think you chose 2016 as Walsh for president.
Well, here's
So if say you were running for president in 2012, would you say openly to people, you know, we should do something?
they cannot have the bomb. And so if we have to use a military strike to make sure they don't have any nuclear capability, we should do it. Jeff, here's the deal.
Are you a big supporter of Israel?
Huge supporter of
Do you
Israel.
think Krishnamurthy and Duckworth big supporters of Israel?
I don't know
Is
where
that
they
going
are.
to be a big issue with you?
I know this president is not.
You think so?
This president
But
is
the
the first.
liberals and the Jewish population supports Democrats, voted for Obama probably 80%.
I think
You don't
that's
think the
beginning
Jews
to
know what
change.
they're doing?
No, I
They
think
don't know
that
what's in their interest?
I think that's beginning to change.
Beginning.
I
How
think.
many would you say he'll get? 70% of the vote?
No,
instead of
I
80%?
think you're going to see that come down.
We're going to continue to speak as the credits roll, but I very much want to thank our guest, Joe Walsh, who's a good sport and a hell of a guy. And Joe, thank you so
Thanks,
much for
Jeff.
coming.
Thank you.
You know, watch this guy. You can go to the websites, but you can go to YouTube, and you're all over there.
Mm-hmm.
You're battling with Chris Matthews. I mean, Chris isn't, he's lost his step. He isn't quite what he used to.
He's in love
I
with
interviewed him in
Obama.
2000.
He's in love with
He gets
Obama.
that tingle up his...
Yes.
Somewhat, I'm not in love with Barack, but Barack's a more talented guy than Republicans.